that Thomas Massie is correct in saying that this is adding Biden?
No, I don't think Thomas Massie understands government. I think he's a grandstander, frankly. He'll probably vote. We don't even talk to him much. I think he should be voted out of office.
Now, I'm not one to, I guess it'd be like saying committing friendly fire here. I like a lot of the stuff the Trump admin has been doing. I think Donald Trump is a great president. But one thing that always drives me insane with Trump is he tries to pick fights that he doesn't need to pick. And that just don't make sense. So over a couple days ago, I think it was yesterday actually, he called out Thomas Massie of all people and said that he needs to be voted out of office for not agreeing with his bill. Now, for those of you that don't know Thomas Massie, he's a House of Rep member from Kentucky. He's basically like similar to Rand Paul. He's really big on not spending government money, and he has issues with this bill, which I think is a fair statement. So let me just dive into kind of what Trump said here, and then we'll go into more after that.
Thomas Massie said that adds more deficit than Biden did, and this bill kind of...
Because we have to fix the country.
Do you think that Thomas Massie is correct in saying that this is adding Biden?
No, I don't think Thomas Massie understands government. I think he's a grandstander, frankly. He'll probably vote. We don't even talk to him much. I think he should be voted out of office. And I just don't think he understands government. If you ask him a couple of questions, he never gives you an answer. He just says, I'm a no. He thinks he's going to get publicity. And you have that. You have that.
So basically he's saying that Thomas Massie is just doing it for attention. He's not really that kind of guy. So I don't personally see that. I could be wrong, I guess. But I don't see that being the thing. And then you have people on his side. There's been a lot of people basically saying this is kind of dumb on Trump's part because Thomas Massie is one of the good members of Congress that actually care about fixing the debt. A lot of them say that. He actually means it. So Tim Pool says something like, I think Thomas Massie is our best rep in Congress, but I understand the political game Trump is playing. This guy has 30,000 views. Thomas Massie is literally the only dude in government trying to stop the U.S. dollar from getting totally destroyed by inflation and debt. This man is a patriot. And I want to dive into a little bit here. He did he went on Tim Pool's podcast the other day. And they basically talked about what's in this bill, what he has issues with. So I'm going to play a clip from this and then kind of just talk about it. So just jump right in.
View is largely we need to move as quickly as we can before the midterms so that we can enact some of those agenda items that we want to see done from the Trump administration. But I'm curious your thoughts. What's currently going on with this big beautiful bill and where do you stand on it?
Well, I think the big beautiful bill is in trouble a little bit. That's why you see the speaker letting us out of Congress a day early this week. It's got problems. It's got warts. What would I do? Well, in an ideal world, I'd make it deficit neutral. I wouldn't be adding to the deficit like this bill does. And in a pragmatic world, if you want to get something done quickly, they probably need to skinny this thing down. And it's just got too many things in it right now, too many things that are objectionable. And there's a lot of sort of shell games going on. A lot of the cuts are backloaded and won't happen until Trump leaves office. And the problem with that is it looks real good on a 10-year window, but the reality is that the lobbyists will have their way. They've got 4 years to make sure those cuts never actually happen. And that's a problem. So let me give you an example, Tim. The Green New Deal, which was part of the Inflation Reduction Act, that should be a no-brainer. We should just repeal every part of that, root and branch, right? Well, here's what they've done. They've decided to cut residential solar subsidies. Okay, I'm not for any subsidies, but they've decided if you're a homeowner, those subsidies, or they're called tax credits, those tax credits go away. But if you're a corporation, they keep going for at least 4 more years. And so the interesting thing is that sets up a scenario where solar will still be subsidized, but instead of owning the panels on your house, that won't be financially practical. They're pushing you into leasing them from a corporation or an installer. The other thing that...
See, that's one thing right there. Where, like you said, the Green New Deal, all that stuff, I think that was unnecessary. I think it was a lot of wasted money. But, and then I think Trump made a comment saying that's all gone. It's not all gone from the bill. It's a lot of it's still there. And what he's saying is that corporations still get to deduct that off their taxes, but people don't. So that's something where I think this obviously this bill is the way it's written. It's mostly Congress. Trump says what he wants, but I don't think he's fully read the bill yet. And I think this is where there's really a disconnect between the congressmen who are paid for by companies and corporations versus Trump, who really wants to help people. There's stupid stuff like this where they got rid of the subsidy for the everyday American and they kept it for the corporation. So that helps the corporation. And then, like he said, they're going to push it towards leasing, which still helps the corporation. That's where there's a disconnect. And this is why a lot of people don't like the Republican Party. So yeah, that's one big thing. Let them keep going.
It does is it gives the corporations and companies 4 years to lobby to keep their subsidies going, because their subsidies won't end for 4 years. Let me tell you another thing in this bill. So no tax on tips, no tax on Social Security, no tax on overtime. Well, I'm really interested in those. 2 of those 3 are bills that I introduced into Congress. No tax on tips and no tax on Social Security. I've been introducing that bill for about a decade now, trying to get that passed. But the reality is those tax cuts aren't exactly what they say, and those only last 3 years. So as soon as Trump leaves office, those expire. Those aren't permanent.
Yeah, so they only made it last until 2028. I believe that either end of 2028, beginning of 2029, somewhere around that time frame, they will expire. And basically what that does is I guess it'd be like if a Democrat got into office in 2029, they obviously wouldn't push it any farther. So it's not a permanent thing. And what he's saying too is, I believe the way it's worded for the no tax on tips, I think it's a deduction. And I believe it's up to $25,000. So it is misleading. I think Trump wanted no tax on tips like completely. And the Republicans are pushing more for like a $25,000 deduction. So if you, I don't know, I guess work at a high-end place in the city and you make like $50,000, $60,000 in tips a year, you can only deduct $25,000 of that. And then you still have to pay tax on the rest. From my understanding, from what I've read in the bill, things could still change. That they haven't voted on it yet, but that's what it is right now. So like I said, it is definitely misleading, which is annoying. And like I said, I don't know if Trump knows it's like that yet.
And the reason they did that is they cost a lot of money. Now, I think the most controversial tax cut provision in here, by the way, I haven't seen a tax cut I don't like, right? I love all the tax cuts. Let's cut all the taxes, okay? Let's slash them. But we need to cut spending at the same time. There is one tax cut in here that doesn't really make sense, and that is to raise the SALT deduction, state and local tax deduction. It's a big deal to Republicans from blue states. And by the way, there's no Senate appetite for this tax provision because you don't have senators from blue states. They run statewide. You don't have Republican senators from blue states.
Right.
That would be California and New York and Illinois, for instance. Well, but you have Republicans in the House from those states. There are some districts, believe it or not, that do lean Republican. Those guys have been given the biggest gift ever. It's bad tax policy, and they're still not happy with it. The state and local tax deduction in the big beautiful bill, as it's written, would go from $10,000. Like, let's say you've got a nice house and you pay $10,000 of taxes on it. Well, that lets you out of $10,000 of federal tax. We can argue about whether you should get out of any federal tax just because your local and state government is gouging you. But the speaker has agreed to raise that to $30,000. You have to have a pretty nice house to have $30,000 of tax on it. And the blue state Republicans are not happy with that. They want more. And even though it would reduce the tax income coming into the government, the federal government, which generally is not a bad thing, it means you've got to take that from somewhere else. And so it's a gift to California and New York. And it should.
So this is something I actually just learned about, because usually, like, when normal people are doing their taxes, they just do the standard deduction. The SALT tax is more for if you have like a lot of assets, a lot of money, different places. So basically what the SALT tax is it's called the state and local tax deduction. It's a federal tax deduction in the United States that allows taxpayers to itemize deductions to certain state and local taxes from their federal taxable income. So basically property taxes, income taxes, stuff like that. So I think mainly people use it for property taxes. So basically what happens is, if you live in a blue state like California and New York, and your state is hammering you with property taxes because they have like 2 of the highest property taxes in the whole country, and you have a really nice house, like millions of dollars, you can deduct that from your federal income taxes to make up for that. So up to $10,000 right now. So basically, what's happening is they're paying these high state taxes, and then our federal tax dollars are basically reimbursing them for it. So the states win, the federal government loses, and it's insane. Like us everyday Americans are subsidizing people with $1 million homes because they live in states where the taxes are insane. And I think that's ridiculous. And what I learned with this is that before Trump's tax cuts in 2017, there was no cap on this. So Trump made it a cap of $10,000 per year, which still sounds like a lot. But before this, there was no cap. So right here, prior to the Tax and Jobs Act 2017, there was no specific dollar amount of the amount of state and local taxes a taxpayer could deduct from their federal income taxes. So hypothetically, they could have done tens, hundreds of thousands of dollars deducted from our federal tax dollars to subsidize their home. So this actually hurt rich people and helped everyday Americans. So it says right here, it's worth noting that the SALT deduction has historically been more beneficial to higher income taxpayers as they are more likely to itemize deductions and pay higher state and local taxes. Therefore, the cap's impact has been more pronounced among wealthier individuals in high tax jurisdictions. So when, all the liberals try to say that this bill benefited the rich, like, bring up this. Like, I didn't even, like I said, I don't make enough money to itemize my stuff. I just did a standard deduction. But that's absolutely insane. And I actually saw today that Mike Johnson is actually trying to get up to 40,000, not just 30. It was just 30,000. Now it's 40,000 because these blue state Republicans pushing for it because it makes them look better. Because it's like, oh, we're helping you because you live in a blue state. Like, no, that's wrong. Like, we should not be subsidizing that. So that's what he was basically talking about there. I'm trying to see if there's anything else. Yeah, he wants to do it from 10,000 to 30,000, which would literally benefit the rich. And it's just crazy. So like I don't know if Trump knows this, it's in there, or if it's going to be in there. But Thomas Massie's calling that out because he's not afraid to call his own side, which is why I personally respect him. Let's see what more he has to say.
Shouldn't be in there.
So one thing I want to clarify too, I understand most people know
bad, guys. I didn't realize I didn't flip the screen. There we go.
this, but for those that don't, the deficit is, what is this? This perpetual overspending of our budget forever, basically increasing the deficit. I've talked to a lot of people and they confuse debt and deficit.
Yeah.
And the deficit just means that I'm pretty sure actually, maybe you can tell me, how long has it been that the U.S. government consistently spends more than it brings in?
Well, on April 15th, it depends on the time window you're looking at. On April 15th, my debt counter actually went the other way because for a brief week, everybody pays their taxes. And I mean, it's encouraging and discouraging at the same time that my debt clock goes down for a week, but that's the week everybody pays their taxes. But if you're looking for a 1-year period, you'd have to go back to the 90s when Republicans, who were actually conservative back then, I guess, imposed some restraints on Bill Clinton. And they also put things like welfare reform and work requirements. And guess what? If you look at the big, beautiful bill, there are Medicaid work requirements for able-bodied.
All right, before he jumps into this is important too. He mentioned deficit spending. So a lot of people don't really know what that is. So basically what the deficit is when we spend more money than we bring in. That's what the deficit is. So government deficit increases when government spending exceeds its revenue over a given year. Increase government spending, decrease government revenue, increase interest payments on debt, which is really high. So basically, Trump is really good at tax cuts. He loves making it easier for the everyday Americans. The unfortunate thing is he's working on a little bit this year. I think Congress is not helping the best with this bill, but he's laying off the government. He's decreasing spending in all these departments. So he is focusing more on government spending this year. I think actually in the first quarter this year, government spending went down by 5%, which is a start. His first term, he didn't really focus on that. He only focused on the tax cuts. So the deficit kept going up. And then obviously under Biden, it kept going up, up, up too. So and that's what makes the debt larger, is we're spending more money than we're actually taking in from taxpayers. So, and the liberals like to say it's a taxing problem. No, we have a spending problem. That's 100% what it is, a spending problem. So that's what that is. And actually, the last time we actually brought in more than we spent was fiscal year 2001. So it's been 24 years since we brought in and we had a budget surplus for a given year. So it's been a long time. So that's something that needs to change. And I'm hoping Trump fixes some of that. I don't know if he's going to do that because, he didn't really do much last time, but we'll see. But I want to get into where he said he's talking about Medicaid work requirements.
Bodied individuals, but there are loopholes you could drive a truck through, and they don't kick in until Trump leaves office. Like, in other words, they'll probably never happen. And the loophole says that you don't really have to work as long as you're undergoing a training program that your state approves of. Well, the state will have some, like California and New York, they'll have some kind of $10 online training program that qualifies you for Medicaid, even if you're an able-bodied single individual with no kids.
Is
Trump? This is what gets me too. So this is Medicaid work requirements. So this is for able-bodied people that aren't working enough or don't work at all that are on Medicaid. It's not for people that are in wheelchairs, disabled people. It's for able-bodied Americans, which there are a lot of them on Medicaid. You need to do something. And that's what this is. But like he said, they don't enact until 2029. So if someone else gets in there, can easily overturn it. I don't know why that wouldn't start now. I don't get what the push off of it. And like he said too, they're putting training requirements, which I will say in the defense, if you're doing an actual training, you're going to school for to learn how to weld or something like that, I would be fine with that because that could lead to a good paying job, which you will be paying taxes. If you're learning how to use Microsoft Word for 2 hours, 1 day a month, that shouldn't qualify. So there needs to be specific, when it comes to training, specific requirements, because that could easily be a loophole.
Trump, I'm assuming there's things in this that Trump wants, but is he just basically willing to accept these concessions knowing they expire by the time he leaves because he wants to get his agenda through?
It could be. I think a lot of this he doesn't know. I think, for instance, the example I gave you about the solar subsidies, how we're cutting, there are no tax credits for homeowners, but the tax credits for corporations continue. I doubt he is aware of those subtleties like that. He's probably putting a lot of faith in Mike Johnson and John Thune and just saying, okay, guys, whatever you got to do to get this done, pay off the blue state New York Republicans and California Republicans, do what you got to do and just get this bill passed. I think the problem is that Mike Johnson isn't being completely forthright with the president. Maybe they can roll the Freedom Caucus at the end. I know there's a lot of grumbling from some conservative Republican senators and from some conservative Republicans here in the House who predominantly belong to the Freedom Caucus. Maybe they just plan to roll them at the end because in addition to the tax cuts, this bill has spending increases, but it's the kind of spending that if you don't spend the money, you could get in trouble in a Republican primary. The spending increases, for instance, are for the military, another over $100 million for the military. You've got HHS, border security. There's going to be over $50 billion there. And also for border security in the Judiciary Committee, you can have another $100 million of spending there. And they'll say, if you're a Republican, they'll try to run an ad. Oh, by the way, and the Golden Dome is in there. They'll run ads of an intercontinental ballistic missile hitting St. Louis. He voted against protecting our country. He voted against enforcing the border. Those are the kind of ads they'll run against you if you vote against that, but against a big, beautiful bill. But
that's what you point out here is there is a lot of pressure to accept this bill because it is, what Trump wants. And a lot of Republicans are probably just going to go through with it no matter what, just to be united. But that's the issue. That's what the left does. I see they'll say the right does infighting with different congressmen and stuff, but I think that's a good thing. I think they should all have different thought processes. I think they all should say how they feel. And I don't think they should feel pressure to say a certain thing if they feel it'll help the American people. Like Thomas Massie, like I say, he's a lot like Rand Paul. He will come out and say it. It can be annoying sometimes, especially for Trump. Like when Rand Paul is trying to shut down his tariffs. I get why Trump is doing the tariffs because it's a negotiation tactic. And I'm pretty sure I made a TikTok before where I said if they shut down these tariffs where he can't control them, then Trump loses all negotiating power and these trade deals are going to suck if they even get them done. So I'm glad that didn't go through, but that was something annoying Rand Paul did. I still respect Rand Paul. Thomas Massey's the same way. Like, just look at I looked up some of the bills he's introduced. So he's introduced multiple bills to get rid of the Federal Reserve, or I'm sorry, have a full audit of the Federal Reserve. Why that hasn't been audited, I don't know. Ease regulations for sale of meat within state borders, which could probably make the sales cheaper. Get rid of the Department of Education. Reform congressional pensions by allowing members to opt out. I guess they're not allowed to opt out of it. And another thing too is he mentioned he wants to get rid of, he's introduced a bill to get rid of tax on Social Security multiple times. So I did look that up. He's done it in every session of Congress. So one session's 2 years. Every session since 2012, he's introduced this. And I guess it just never gets anywhere. So yeah, it's stupid. I think Trump is probably just a little upset that there's someone going against him, especially in the Republican Party. I think Thomas Massey's complaints are valid. I think that some of this stuff should be looked into more. Like I said, the thing that drives me insane the most out of all this is probably the whole salt tax, which is just insane. Like, that salt tax deduction should not even be a thing. Okay? If you choose to live in the state of California and you buy $1 million home and you're like in Los Angeles, the federal government should not be responsible for giving you money back because of your property taxes when you choose to live there. That's ridiculous. Yeah, so that's all I got in this video. Let me know what you guys think about the whole Thomas Massey, Donald Trump situation. If you guys like if you guys like Thomas Massey. And what you guys think of this bill. This bill seems kind of all over the place. I'm still reading into it more. It's like 1,200 pages, a lot to take in. So let me subscribe, comment down below, man. I'll see you next time.